Dan, I was driving down the road the other day and I saw one of those gigantic plastic flapping man that like a business puts out in front, to get attention. You ever see those things?
Yes, I don't know what they're exactly called, but I've seen those, and I've seen like the great big inflatable gorillas, or like
I think they're
animals.
I think they're called big flapping plastic man. Or I guess it could be a woman. Don't need to be sexist here.
No, yeah, I know what you mean though. They're inflatable, and they're top heavy, so they bend and then they flip back, and they're eye catching.
Yes,
Yep.
that is the term, eye catching. I had learned that certain towns, I guess their zoning forbid them, or you have to have a permit for them. Like some towns are very strict with signage and even temporary signage. You have to have everything cleared.
No, I can believe that. Yes,
Yeah.
you. I could see where permits would be required.
Yeah, I don't know. Zoning is its own thing. I've had a couple people ask me questions about zoning, about, you know, now where my wood yard is right now, I'm zoned industrial. So I guess I'm allowed to make noise.
That's a big
I guess
advantage.
yeah, I'm allowed to junk the place up, but I still like to keep it neat. But signage is, they're pretty strict. I,
Yep.
I think even if I were to, like how my gates fly open, if I put a sign on my gates that said open, I think that has to have approval
Really.
from the city. Yeah. And then there's some towns that they just literally don't care. I don't know.
Yep. And I know there's certain requirements sometimes when you are like flying around those inflatable things, like it's like only during certain times of the day it's allowed. And sometimes on certain days. I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff with that.
Yeah. Do you have zoning where you live? I guess, the residential, commercial, retail, industrial, agriculture.
Where I'm at, Joe, I am always in the zone. I am zoned in. I know
Yeah.
I am zoned residential.
I'm wondering, and I don't, maybe we can ask everyone to keep this episode confidential, but have you looked into your roadside stand?
Yes.
Does it violate your zoning?
No, it does not. Um, I am not technically in the city limits, so I am in a township, and I checked with my township, and they do allow for. I don't know what the actual technical term it is, but it's kind of like roadside vending, like vegetable stands, lemonade stands, ice cream stands, firewood stands. All that stuff
Yeah.
is allowed
Uh huh. All
on
right.
your property, though. So
Like all the time though, like
yes.
yours, or is there like a a number of days in a row where then it becomes a violation?
No, I think that comes into play where, like, if I would go put up my stand on like a commercial property, like say the gas station or something, like if I was on, or like the corner of an intersection, that's technically
Yeah.
kind of like owned by the township. But I haven't, yeah, I have looked into it, and there's some like weird term with vendor in it. I don't know exactly remember, but as far as
Huh.
I know, I'm in the clear.
Yeah. I think zoning is I generally support zoning because I don't want, when you buy a house, you're always worried about who are the neighbors. Are you moving in next to a serial killer or anyone like that, I guess? There's just so many unknowns. But like the one thing with zoning is, it would be great if you could put all of this money, some of us, our biggest life's expenditure is in their house, and that you can sleep well knowing that your neighbor can't put up a motocross racetrack right next to your house.
Right. Or someone can't buy the vacant lot next to you and do that, build something just
Right.
ridiculous.
Or put in a outside gun range,
Yeah.
which, that's one of my hobbies, but there's a place for everything. And right next to, the residential house is probably not the best place for it. There was a recent, well, no, this isn't recent, but this was a very popular um, incident that happened out here. So the local university, they have a crime lab, and they were looking for a land to put in a cadaver lab.
Mm.
So it would be where they take dead bodies, that people that donated their bodies to science, and they would bury them in different circumstances in ground, and they would study like the decomposition, and they would
Yep.
use that data for crime analysis. Well, it was going in this township up the road from me, and the local people just went ballistic over this. And I was reading an article on it, and they're at a township meeting, and the people were raising heck that they didn't want this. And the one guy was saying, this, what about zoning? This has to violate our zoning. And the township trustees, it was quoted in the paper saying, we don't have zoning. you know, and so that is the kind of stuff that you would be at risk. Because that was like, I'm not talking about zoning here, I guess. I'm thinking about like that flappy guy
Yep.
as calling people to a business, and then you get like into like real strict stuff where the flappy plastic guy violates zoning. But then, you don't want strict zoning, but then you also don't want a four-wheeler racetrack right next to your house either. Where do you draw the line, I suppose?
Right. And I've kind of seen some of those. I don't know if you've seen like those. They're like tall and narrow flags that will say like firewood on them, and
Yes.
and they're kind of like they're not inflatable, but they kind of flap and then they kind of turn with the wind.
Yep.
And that could be something that I could see possibly being like a violation of some ordinance or zoning in someone's area.
Yeah.
But then again, like how do you get people's attention drawn to your business, your firewood
Yeah.
business?
Well, I would imagine too, like local community standards. I've always said, out where I live, I think if I were to put out a roadside stand, I don't think anyone would care. But I've also said that I predict that it would not even make it through its first night. It would be, it would get blasted by someone in a big truck, would just drive right through it and just make splinters out of it. But then, like some neighborhoods, probably you would get a lot of neighbors griping about it.
Yeah.
And it makes me think too about when I used to make firewood here at my house. I had a big machine, and I was always sensitive to the neighbors, even though I'm pretty sure it didn't violate our zoning out here. But I still wanted to be neighborly about it. And then I got other guys that I buy firewood off of, and they got houses that are closer to their house than what I have, and they're out there all the time running their saws. It just makes you wonder if
Yeah.
you're
Well,
violating zoning or if you're ticking off the neighbors.
if somebody calls you in though, you probably know who it is, so then you can go knock on their door. That's
Yeah,
the one thing with not having very many neighbors. If you get a complaint filed against you, you probably know who it is.
yeah, you could probably figure out who it is.
Yeah.
I was driving down the road one day, and someone had a sign that they hand painted, like on a big sheet of plywood, and it was like a nasty message to the neighbor, who ratted them out over something.
Yep. That probably was the case.
Yeah. So now you're saying that you're comfortable with zoning, you're not violating it.
Correct.
And what about the neighbors though? You good with them?
Yes, I am. I'm very neighborly with my neighbors. We're all in fact, we like even have like a neighborhood group, like text with everyone that we can communicate with, like letting people know like if we're out of town or what's going on. So it's
Yeah.
it's it's very nice, very cool.
Well, what about roadside stands though? I'm just thinking because weren't you talking with someone at the International Firewood Expo 2024 about roadside stands? They were trying to think of ideas
Yes.
on increasing sales.
Yes.
And
It
and that
was
is where I would I'm thinking that I would believe that there are a number of roadside stands out there that are well intended, they're well presented, professionally done, and they're kind of like not, sticking out there and annoying people, but they probably technically violate zoning. I'm just thinking, is there like a fine line between advertising and putting like an eye catching display out there, but you're drawing too much attention to yourself to where like the zoning
yeah.
inspector is going to show up? I don't know.
Yeah. I think there is a very fine line in some circumstances. And
Yeah.
again, depending on your location. But yeah, the conversation I was having, they were wondering like how to get more attention to their firewood business. And, I am one that believes like to use social media, but not in a sense of just posting an ad in the marketplace, like firewood for sale. Like
Yeah.
I told this gentleman, like, look on Facebook if you have like a neighborhood Facebook group, or groups in your area like barbecuers, or and then join those groups, but don't join them with like the intention of hard selling. Like, just get to know the people, maybe post a picture of you by your fire pit and say, just got done burning some of my firewood that I also have for sale right on the corner here. Like,
Yeah.
do like the soft sell, get to know people, and like that I think is a more targeted approach to bring attention to you instead of just like firewood for sale. Here you go.
Yeah. Or it was the one Facebook group that someone will post that they're selling firewood, and then someone posts a meme that says you're selling firewood to people who sell firewood.
Right. Yeah, you have to join the right group. So like I said, you look for like your neighborhood group, or like maybe campers, or like I said, barbecuer, like people who would use your firewood. Join those groups, and then don't join a group of like firewood sellers and try to sell them firewood.
Yes, because us people that are into firewood are inherently frugal,
Yes.
to begin with. Yeah. So these roadside stands, though, I'm thinking, that you can pretty them up. I'm just wondering, though, the people that buy from them, do you ever get the sense that, I don't know, there's probably not a spontaneous purchase where a person's just driving down the road and they go, "Oh, a firewood stand. I think I'll buy some." Don't you think that they just happen to know that it's there? They saw it about a month ago,
Yes.
and then the
Yep.
need comes up, and then they go drive by and it's still there.
They're like, "Oh yeah, remember that on that corner over there? Yeah, they had firewood there. Let's go get some." Right.
Uh
Yep.
huh. Yeah. So, what do you think, though? I mean, people could still. I know exactly what you're talking about. That flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, but drawing too much attention or not enough. I think there's probably that fine line, huh?
Yes. And I also believe there's a fine line in just and this is gonna sound bad, but I think like if you make your firewood roadside stand look too nice and like really high class,
Uh huh.
like people will look at that and say, "Oh, well, he's obviously making a lot of money. I don't need to buy firewood from him." And they'll go to
Yeah.
like someone that looks like it was put together by a kid because they think there's, supporting.
Or
So
they
I
might
always
they might assume that the wood's too expensive and they don't want to feel dumb.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
and that is that goes back to my days when I was trying to buy an engagement ring and a wedding, for my wife. Well, at that time, my girlfriend. That was an area that I had no experience in, and I didn't want. I just have this desire to not, to be laughed at in public, and I just didn't want to go into a jewelry store and feel dumb because I didn't know what I was doing, and getting into something where the prices were just too crazy. And
Yep.
I wonder if that's the same case too. If you make your stand look too nice, people might be intimidated to stop at it.
Right. Yeah. Because I think there's something about that, that perceived like I don't know, like when you're looking at like like roadside stands, and it's like it's not that commercialized level of like you're just putting money in the pocket of some CEO somewhere, like when you buy from a gas station or something. You know,
Yeah.
you give the presence of, hey, this money is going to help whatever. It helps a guy buy beer and pizza on a Friday night.
Which I think is a worthy cause. I mean, what the
Yes,
heck?
indeed. There you go.
Yeah. Or maybe if you had a sign where, some of the letters are backwards, given the appearance that
Well, I don't know
that
if
it
I'd
was
go
made
that
by.
far.
Yeah, or have your son out there with a tin cup and just
Yes.
standing there. Yeah, that I can't get fed until I sell this firewood.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know about that extreme, but I do see sometimes like that's the big name of the game now, is like getting that attention to your firewood roadside stand or just your business too in general.
Yeah. I would suspect that a roadside stand could be, that signature item. It could really be made to be beautiful, to be eye-catching, to be functional, all of the things that you would want to have in a roadside stand. But I just think that I look at it as a zoning thing, but I also look at it as being neighborly. And maybe some people you know, just one person that thinks it's beautiful and the other person thinks that's an eyesore.
Yeah. And that's all it would take.
Yeah.
One person makes some noise and
Now, how long have you had yours up and
oh
and
geez.
making money for you?
4 or 5 years now?
And you've never ever once received a complaint?
No, I have not.
Not even like a passive aggressive comment about it?
No. Well,
Nothing.
I don't think so. I mean, I had my one neighbor, my one neighbor, when I talk to him, he'll just always comment on, how much wood has been moved out of it and sold. And
Uh-huh.
I
Or
see they
he's
cleared you out last night.
or he never says, "It'd be a shame if something bad happened to this thing."
No,
It'd be a shame if this thing blew up one night and then you wouldn't have it out here anymore.
nope, nothing like that.
All right. That's good to know. Yeah, I don't know. I always thought that, the day might come where the zoning inspector, because I live out in the country, I live out in the farmlands, but we're still zoned. And I once served on our local zoning commission. So our zoning out here is not very passionate. It's not very aggressive. But I've grown up and I've been exposed to this enough now to know that I support zoning. You always hear people are like, well, if a person owns land, they should have the right to do on it what they see fit. But I would always say, you want the right to do what, you know,
Yeah,
and that's where you get into the dirt bike racetrack and junkyards, all of things that would just kill your property value.
right.
I would like to have some predictability in my life, and I think zoning provides it. And
Yeah.
there's like the food trucks. A lot of these towns now, they have zoning for food trucks because you have functioning brick and mortar restaurants in town, and they pay their taxes and they play by the rules. And then a food truck could just set up on the street corner, and take business away from them. And then they're not the ones that are supporting the tax base. They're just taking the
Mm,
money, from their customers, and then they leave. But then, zoning is used to protect the local businesses like that.
yeah.
Hmm.
Well, and I could see also like with the roadside stand, having some type of regulation as far as like how close to the road it is. Um, just things like that. I mean, you obviously wouldn't want something that would be a hazard to people driving by or needing to like
Uh,
use the shoulder of the road, stuff like that.
yeah, I could see the day where you have some firewood business in your town that starts to becoming big and gets elected, on like city council, and then they start pushing for zoning changes to outlaw firewood stands because it's taking away from their money.
It's possible. I know. I worried because I'm about a mile from a gas station, and the supplier to that gas station like supplies this whole like half the state, you know,
Oh wow.
and luckily I think that's what, he's got plenty to keep him busy, so he's not too worried about my little roadside stand. But I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I could see someone like that making a stink about it.
Yeah, I would think, especially in firewood, there's enough to go around. I mean, there's a firewood shortage every year. So,
Yeah,
yeah, people shouldn't fret over nickel and dime stuff.
but I've also learned that in the firewood industry, there's a lot of sensitive egos, and people can easily get, I don't know, weird.
Oh yeah, you have an example that you have on your mind?
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna name names or businesses, but there's just, like it's always. I've talked to people and I've heard about like, companies that like they don't, one guy selling firewood doesn't want another guy to know, what chainsaw he uses because he thinks that guy is going to then get it and be, able to outproduce him and sell
Oh,
more or
good
take his
heavens! Yeah,
customers. There's there's just stuff like that
you
where
had
people.
you had the story where you approached. I think you were on vacation or something. You approached a firewood company. You'd like to do a video, and they absolutely said no because you would be exposing their secrets.
Yes, yeah, yeah. The secrets of firewood
Yeah,
exposed
their
this
their
week on
secret of
Backstory
how
Firewood.
they have this secret technique of splitting wood and stacking it.
Yeah, and but but that's what I mean is like there's just some people that are just even I could see where people might try to like put up a stand, on the corner just down the street or something. Like there's always competition and then there's like
Yeah,
just weird stuff.
yeah. The way I handle it now, if a customer calls me and they say, "Joe, our current firewood service is terrible. Could you take it over?" The answer is yes. Now, I have been out on the road or I'll go eat at a restaurant and I find out that they cook with wood or they smoke with wood. And this is how it goes. I always have my business cards on me. And I would say, "Oh, I see that you smoke with wood. That's great. Are you happy with your current supplier?" And if they give you that look with a grin on their face, then I know that we have a sales opportunity here. There's always the look, where
The
they get
look,
that
yep.
grin.
The
Yeah, they get the
pause
grin
and
on.
the look.
That's all I need. That's you know, to the shark, that's blood in the water, right? But then if they say, "Yeah, the guy's great. He's been with me for a long time," then I say that is awesome because good firewood services are hard to come by. But I would still say, "Here's my card. If you ever run into trouble or if you ever need a plan B, I'm your guy." And I leave it at that. I do not muscle in on other people's stuff. And, but if the customer calls me, you better believe it. It's fair game.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think, especially when people know, that I service that account. I don't know. I get it. I hear from my people. They'll say, "Yeah, there was this company came in, you know, and it's always price. They're always offering a lower price, and that's where I think with restaurants, that's the wrong way to go about it. People, the managers would say, I told them it's not about the price, bud. It's about where will you be on Christmas Eve when I realize that we're out of wood.
Right. That's the
You know,
service you provide.
you better believe it.
Yep.
Will you answer the phone when I call?
Yep.
When I, yeah, I'm serious. When I say jump, will you say okay? That is, that is the life with commercial accounts, man.
And when someone asks them if they are happy with their supplier and it's you, they will say, "Yes, I am extremely happy and therefore no need to continue this conversation."
Well, it's the free market, whatever.
Yeah.
Someone says all's fair in love and war, but what comes around goes around.
Yeah.
Yeah, two can play at that game, but whatever. Yeah, but for roadside stands, man, and like when you go up to Lake Erie, from where I live. We're 30 miles inland. When you go up to Lake Erie, that's where all the campgrounds are. I swear it is a city ordinance that if you live on, I think it's Route 2 up there, it parallels the shoreline of Lake Erie. I think there's a city ordinance that you must have firewood for sale out at your mailbox, because every house on that road has got firewood for sale. And it just seems that, one person puts up a stand and the other one and the other one and the other one. And
Yep. And
yeah,
and and the closer you get to the campground, the more expensive it becomes. And you're like, oh shoot, I should have stopped at that last one. And then nope, here comes
Yeah.
another one.
That's true though. The closer
Yep.
you get to the campground, I think the more expensive it gets.
If I lived in an area like that, I would go down the road about a mile and put up a stand so that they would drive by it and then realize when they get to my place that, we just passed that one, so we better stop at this one.
Yeah. Put up a sign, last chance for firewood. Not telling them that there's 12 more as they keep driving.
Oh, I've been in those areas though. It's like every mile there's another stand.
Yeah. Yeah. But they must be selling it. Otherwise, I don't think they would have gone through the hassle,
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's always a need for firewood. Always a need. Yeah. All right. Yeah, it was just an idea, Dan. I was driving in town. I saw one of those flappy guys. But when I moved into my wood yard, because I had to get a permit for my sign, which I haven't even put up yet, simply because I'm just, I don't consider myself open to the public. I just haven't put my sign up yet. I have it made. It was expensive. Good heavens. And I just haven't put it up. But then they had a whole list of rules. When you live in a city, when you operate in a city, it's zoned out. So, yeah, it was just in my mind. And it made me think about roadside stands and people, if they ever get in trouble or anything. How about this? If any of our woodhounds are out there listening, if you have a roadside stand and you've had a bad situation, maybe share it with us. We'd maybe like to talk about it on a upcoming episode. If you had, if you got in trouble with your neighbors or zoning or the police or something, I'd love to hear it.
Yes, and you can email us at thewoodhounds@gmail.com.
I love that. What's that email address, Dan?
Thewoodhounds@gmail.com.
There you go.
I think what we're hearing here is that next year at the International Firewood Expo, there's going to be a large inflatable bendy man.
That would be kind of cool, huh?
Yeah.
We'll set one up and we'll give him a name. We'll have to give him a name though.
I think I can see it right along the road there, like just waving and bringing in attention.
I'll probably walk out to the food trucks and it'll like beat me to death or something. It'll like
it just collapses on top.
Yeah,
of
it'll collapse around. Oh, like, save me! Help!
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, with that,
Yeah.
I am going to go actually, I got to go check my roadside stand now that I think about it.
Take your weed eater out there and trim the grass around it. Make it look
Yes.
nice. All right, Dan. Well, what do you say? Let's strike up the band and we'll let you get out there and polish up your roadside stand.
Sounds good. Thanks everyone for tuning in to the Woodhounds, the #1 firewood podcast in the world, right here on your favorite podcasting platform.
Yeah, and if you would please give us a 5-star rating with whichever streaming service that you use. And Dan, did you happen to see that we have got our 100th rating on Spotify? Another milestone.
You did bring that to my attention. Yes, that is awesome. 100
reviews. And it does absolutely help us being found on searches, and regardless of the streaming service that you use. So Dan, how about I will tell you and I will tell everyone out there to stay
safe
and go clean up
your yard.
What the heck?
I don't know.
Your roadside stand. Come on. and oh, by the way, have
a great day.